Morning, everyone. We did have a competition yesterday that said no more acronyms unless they spell something rude, which has become a great competition internally. So I definitely got a worse gig than you did because I come after you and Andy, but I'll give it a go. And 15 minutes, Dave? Shall I try and? Okay, right. I'll try and bounce through. So, morning. Nice to see lots of new faces in Manchester. I guess just to introduce myself, I'm the chief exec of this new-ish thing that was launched about 10 months ago, which is our new innovation unit called Unit M. I'm going to try and introduce you to our wonderful, curious world of innovation and I guess our interpretation of that, which might be slightly different than the traditional university perspective. As Andy alluded to, my background is not academia, so I'm definitely the least qualified person in the room. I'm a tech entrepreneur by background, so I built a couple of businesses, sold a couple of businesses, and then was asked by Nancy to come and explore in an interesting change moment the innovation strategy for the university. So Nancy was going to be exiting, but we didn't quite know who was going to take that job yet. Our government was going to be exiting. We had a good idea, but we didn't quite know who was going to get that job. And it felt like a really important moment for the university to have a bit of a pause and think about its role in the region and in the economy and in this thing called the innovation economy that we had a suspicion was going to become really important. So most people know me as a passionate Manc who believes in the untapped potential of this region, but I guess, as Andy alluded to before, you can copy and paste that opportunity for pretty much everywhere outside of the Golden Triangle. So I think we collectively think there's still a lot more work to be done and a lot more opportunity to untapped. So I'm looking for a clicker, actually, Dave, because I'm the first person with slides, but there'll be one. There's somewhere. Thank you. I'm good at that. Cheers. So I've spent the last 10 months or so with the founding team standing up this new thing called Unit M. What is Unit M? Well, Unit M is effectively a startup. It's a disruption unit in a 200-year-old institution, which is an interesting thing to build. We'll talk in a second about why we've built a new innovation unit, but I guess we have two remits. We've got an externally facing remit, which is to make universities, and in particular this university, more accessible to the outside world. And by that we mean industry, we mean partners, and we'll talk to some of the projects that we've got today, to entrepreneurs, to startups, to scale-ups, to government, local and national. And much as we have these incredible institutions across the country and incredible innovation assets, I think probably as many of you will testify, they're not always as accessible and as easy to collaborate with, perhaps as the world needs and would like them to be. And if you ask Patrick Vallance or any of Julia's colleagues, we believe that actually opening up universities and making them easier to collaborate with is critical to that kind of translation and adoption conundrum that we believe is critical to growth and cracking the productivity conundrum in the UK. Internally, in order to do that, we've got a mandate to join up. So, like lots of universities, Manchester has a whole heap of incredible innovation activities, all of which are wonderful in their own right, but don't necessarily talk to one another. So we've got the interesting job of beginning to bring all of those people together, particularly as we head towards the launch of the university's new strategy in October. I don't think there's going to be any spoiler alert that innovation is going to be a huge theme for this university. Anybody who follows on social media can see that momentum beginning to build. And Duncan himself, from his previous role, is super passionate on this topic. And I think one of the reasons that he picked Manchester for his next role is because he sees the innovation heritage that Andy talked about, but also the innovation opportunity that we've got in this region and beyond. So we exist as a new disruption unit in service of our university, but also in service of our region. We think we have a really important job to do to drive growth and drive opportunities, most crucially actually for everyone, for all people. So I think what you'll see as a real flavour of the university and as our place is often gets called inclusive innovation, which is a really easy thing to do, to say, and a really difficult thing to do. And from our perspective, that value, that definition of success is now really critically important. So not only as a region do we need to grow, but we need to start the shift to balance of who benefits from that growth and that opportunity. So why were we created? Well, we had a piece of work that we led for about 6 months to really do a deep dive on what the potential of the opportunity for the region and for the institution was, and what the things were that we needed to do to unlock that. We called that the Regional Innovation Review. It was a purposefully dull title to hide a fairly moonshot project, which we learned was pretty important. That was given the air cover of Richard Jones, our colleague who you talked about. And actually, Julia was one of the people who was on our pretty stellar advisory group that we appointed to push us pretty hard alongside people like Patrick Ballance and Richard Friend and other colleagues that you'll know from different elements of the innovation ecosystem. Our essay question, in effect, was if this is the largest innovation asset in the UK's second most important city, we can debate that later at dinner or in the coffee break, then we think we've got a really important role to play, not just in our region, but in the national growth imperative. And the work that we did, talking to lots of the leading ecosystems across the world, came to lots of interesting conclusions and lots of ideas that we could begin to deploy into Manchester. But you won't be surprised to hear that actually the world's most successful innovation ecosystems are accompanied by the world's most successful innovation universities. And so that was a really simple message for us to be able to take back to the institution and say, actually, some of you care about the place you're in, some of you may not, some of you may care about your work, and you may care about our kind of global ranking, but what is really clear is the more successful our region and the more successful the ecosystem we exist in, the more successful we will be as a university and vice versa. So it became really clear, and actually, this university is 200 years old, it's written into our constitution. We were created to power industry. That's our roots, so it's no surprise that it's a fairly easy place for us to go back to. So we've built Unit M. How do we operate? We are a disruption unit. We operate outside of all of the mechanisms of the university and directly report into the Vice-Chancellor. We think that's incredibly important because we're here to break some rules, experiment, try some things, operate with agility, occasionally upset a few people, but it's in the greater good, the spirit, the difficult things for the right reason, as we say. We are funded by the university and with an impact mandate. So our job is not to create a P&L and a profit centre within Unit M. Our job is to create opportunity and drive growth and opportunity in our region and in the institution. That's really important to making sure we behave in the right way. As we said, we've got this mandate to join up and to face outwards. And quite unusual, we've got a very multidisciplinary capability. Some people are in the audience today who are in our team, and we have everybody from policy geniuses all the way through to UX designers. So a really unusual set of talent that cohabits and co-creates. And to match that, a very unusual set of projects, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the work that we're doing, but we're in places that you don't always find a university, is probably how I would describe us. But the reason we're doing it is because we see this untapped potential. Actually, Manchester, as both an institution and as a region, has a lot more to unlock. And Andy will, as Mayor, of course, talk about our incredible achievements and our growth in productivity. But the reality is, outside of a handful of cities in this country, there's still, massive underperformance. And we think this university has a critical role to play in our region. You might have seen, I smiled this morning at the Klarna IPO that was announced this morning, and there's 3 founders out of the University of Stockholm who've gone and built one of the world's most successful tech businesses. We don't have any of those businesses currently in the region. We have all the raw materials and all the potential, but to make the transformational change that we need to do in this region, we need to build the ecosystem that can give those kind of founders, those kind of young people who turn up at our university wanting to change the world, the opportunity to do just that. So, what I might do is just talk through a few of the projects. Andy's already given a bit of a steer to some of the stuff that we're up to, but I'll talk you through 3 things. And what's really interesting is, and I saw Darren Jones yesterday talking about inclusive innovation, so everybody's talking about this idea of an innovation-led economy. We're beginning to put in some of the kind of frameworks at a government level, at a policy level, but there comes a moment, even after mayors have stuck a pin in the map of an Atom Valley or in a strategy, where some people have to go and make things happen. And Unit M and our colleagues across the university, that's our job, is to go in now and deliver some of these missions and deliver some of this work, which actually is quite grunty and quite granular, and as I've said, is not always the place that you normally find a university. So one of the projects that we're leading on is the Manchester-Cambridge partnership. So we've seen in the past, I guess, lots of geographically adjacent places, Manchester, Liverpool, Andy talked about before, collaborate. This is a project that is unusual in lots of different ways. It's a pan-UK collaboration, the first of its kind. 2 leading innovation ecosystems, in Cambridge's case, a world-leading brand that is highly productive in a very dense, confined geographical region in a relatively small population, so, just over 100,000. In Manchester's case, we have 2.8 million people, a much greater productivity challenge than Cambridge has got, but an abundance of human resources, places to build manufacturing, places to grow and expand your business. So we spent about 18 months, again, Julia as a kind of silent key strategic supporter of this project, beginning to explore the economic potential if we could wire the 2 ecosystems of these 2 places together. Really quickly, it was obvious that that would be led by the universities, who obviously, through organisations like Royce, already have connections and collaborations. We began to work with government to unlock the funding and to make this not a side of desk project, which is what it was for about a year, but into a fully formed programme, which was announced by Peter Kyle at London Tech Week a couple of months ago. So we now have £5 million to build a team. We're hiring the first member of that team. It's going to be run by Innovate Cambridge and Unit M at either end of that ecosystem. And the idea is 2 + 2 = 10. If we can begin to build through the clusters and through the networks a highly catalysed single ecosystem, then that becomes a real UK asset. So we're really excited about this. The surprising part of this, or surprising for those of us that don't live in Cambridge, that emerged when we began to map this partnership was the passion for inclusive growth. So actually, under the kind of sheen of the Cambridge global brand, many of the same issues that we face here of turn left versus turn right, and 10 minutes down the road, there's 10 years life expectancy difference. Cambridge is battling with many of those issues at the same point. So underpinning this partnership is also a shared passion to drive a different, more inclusive model of growth. Next steps, we're going to be running a 3-year programme. Anybody who would like to get involved and begin to help us catalyse any part of that cluster and those parts of the ecosystem, or just exists between Manchester and Cambridge, or is from one and exists in the other, is really welcome to take part. This is a really different project that we're working. We've just signed an innovation partnership with Manchester City Council. Holt Town is a place that kind of doesn't exist at the minute. For anybody who knows Manchester, it exists between the Ancoats, now highly regenerated hipster territory of Manchester, and Manchester City Football Club. It's a bit of a no man's land. It's going to be an entire new town within the city. And Bev Craig, our leader, has set out a really ambitious 10-year master plan to regenerate this part of the city. At the heart of that master plan is the idea of a digital city, which got signed off, went into the master plan, and then everybody said, what on earth does that mean? What we know it shouldn't mean is just another smart city and some more technology from IBM dropped in that probably isn't what anyone needs. And if we're going to build this in an inclusive way, in an era where we've got a government that wants to drive digitisation and reform of public service delivery, of our education system, of health, there's a whole opportunity here. So utilising the amazing innovation assets and capabilities of the university, we're going to work in partnership with the architects, with the city leadership, and as of last week with Homes England, to really prototype a different way of thinking about how you create place. We're doing that bottom up, so we're doing a huge future citizen engagement programme. So the interesting thing about Holt Town is nobody lives there, so it's not a traditional regeneration programme where you go and talk to all the current residents and ask them what they want. it's pretty derelict apart from a few businesses and a few wrecking yards. So we've got an opportunity to create the kind of place that probably our students who come to the university will want to go and live in 5 or 10 years' time. And so we'll begin with an engagement programme and taking the sustainability science, the material science, the digital technologies that this university is pioneering and beginning to embed them in a citizen-first approach. I'll talk to one last project. I have to mention this because of where we are and because of everything it builds on. But so we're really excited, actually, for what we've got the opportunity to build in collaboration at SMMC. We're working in collaboration with Rochdale Development Agency, with GMCA, and a whole heap of partners. And you're going to hear later about SEAMS. I think all of the work and the thinking that we've got in the master plan for SMMC builds on the shoulders of everything that colleagues at Royce and wider across the ecosystem have created in SEAMS. This is a super, super challenging project. It is not a project, even though it's a building that any commercial developer would even begin to touch because it's so challenging and it doesn't operate by the normal models. But it is the critical first piece in the jigsaw to delivering what Andy talked about before in terms of atom value, which is a huge prize for this region, but also for the UK. So this is going to be a flagship innovation facility. For anybody who knows the area, it's going to be at Kingsway Business Park. It's got, to Andy's transport point before, it's right next to a tram stop, so we've built the tram and travel infrastructure. We're going to be working in collaboration to provide the kind of support that growing industry needs, and in doing that, shift the dial on innovation adoption and therefore on productivity. So as somebody who's going to join this community, you will have access to the university's research talent and expertise. You'll have access to specialist facilities. All of the things we've learned through Dave's teams in Royce, through the Geek, are being transported over to how we build this space, as well as providing a connection back to those institutions. So we're going to be building a cluster in what's currently a field. It's going to be challenging, but actually completely game-changing for the UK, because this actually is what inclusive growth looks like. It's pretty hard, it's pretty grunty, it's in an area that really needs that kind of economic catalyst. And we would argue this is the kind of role that only a university can take. Having the university involved as a partner gives huge confidence to the other kind of commercial partners and strategic partners that we're going to need to make this happen. And if we pull off Cambridge and SMMC together, in old money, what we used to call levelling up, that's how it's going to work. We're going to be able to take scaling businesses that come out of the Cambridge ecosystem and allow them to grow in a place like Rochdale and achieve what the government wants to see, which is those scaling businesses staying here because they've got access to the capital, the places, the talent, the research expertise, and not lose them to other markets, which is obviously a challenge for us at the moment. I probably could go on, Dave, but I'll just say, really nice to meet. Hopefully it's the start of a conversation with some people. We are structured to partner, so get in touch if you want to know more or you want to get involved in any of the things we're doing, or you've just got a brilliant idea for something that you'd like to make happen. So thank you.
Great, thanks Lou, brilliant.